Okay, just say and spell your name.
Jerry Mabe, Jerrymabe.
Okay, tell me the process of your discovery of calling.
The process for me has really been truly that, just a process. It's iterative. I certainly don't want to say I've got it figured out by any means. In fact, sometimes it just creates more questions. But over time, I have gotten some clarity, and that helps. Timothy Keller, the guy that founded Redeemer, says that a spiritual journey can never be just an intellectual exercise, and I really believe that. You got to live it. You have to experience it, and it's something that we go through. It's sort of like I describe it. It's like you go up one, and sometimes back two, and sometimes you go up two, and sometimes you go over three, and there's twists and turns. But it's all part of a process that each person, I think, is going to experience uniquely. And you do get more clarity as you go. I know for me, I sure look back and wasted a lot of time. I mean, there was 17 years that I can see I kind of wasted away. And the answers are there.
Yeah, I think they're playing piano next.
But you look at times in your life that you look back and say was a wasted time. And in terms of calling, the answers were there all the time. It's not like they weren't there. You just probably weren't ready for them. It is a time where you reflect back and you regret some of those, but I think they're still used to help you figure out your calling at some point.
How has this affected your life, your family life, professional, emotional, spiritual?
The biggest part, or one of the surprises for me about calling, and I've just been intrigued with calling and really, really been looking into it. But one of the surprises is, as you almost would expect, it gives you clarity of what to do. That seems like a logical outcome. But the real surprise is it becomes a compass. It becomes a direction. And so as opposed to just getting to figure out what I need to do, you get more clarity almost from what not to do. I've been very fortunate with Right Path, and there's not a week goes by that we don't have an opportunity to engage in a new organization or ministry or not-for-profit. And they all have wonderful plans and outcomes, and they do great work. But once you start looking at calling, it just gives you a direction to be able to say, that's not what I'm supposed to do. And it gives you the freedom to say, as much as I admire what they're doing, that's not where I'm to be. And that's been one of the greatest surprises, is that it gives you clarity as much what not to do or what not for you to be doing as it does to do.
What have been some of the barriers that you've had to overcome? Cultural, emotional?
In terms of barriers, I think it's just it's been interesting to me when you look at it, and I look at working with people in terms of coaching and even talking to people about their calling. One of the biggest barriers is we will actually spend individually. We will spend more time picking out a PDA, a cell phone, certainly a car, and most definitely a house. We will spend more time researching and figuring out that buying decision than we will spend on calling, our life purpose, our calling of what we're supposed to do. And that's pretty amazing, just the time we're willing to spend on it. To me, has been a surprise.
What would you say to others who are on this journey?
In looking at talking to others about calling, the idea of seeking what you want to do, we're all looking for it. In looking back, I see for myself and working with other people, I see there's sort of almost 3 steps. And yet, everybody has a unique, I liken it to your fingerprint, where you look at your fingerprint and you go, well, why isn't this thing smooth and rounded? And I can leave this fingerprint at the scene of a crime and be identified, or at the same time I can have somebody say, your fingerprints are on my life. But it's a unique process. And as unique as it is for each person, there's, to me, about 3 things that I see we all have in common. The first is just the awareness that we each have this emptiness. Kierkegaard, the philosopher, says it great. He says we each are looking for a truth, but not just a truth, our truth, a truth for us, something we can believe in. He goes as far as to say an idea that's so true for us that we're willing to die for it. And that's pretty strong. But we have that emptiness. Pascal is the one that's credited with saying we have this vacuum, we have a hole. Now, he goes as far as to say that hole is a God-shaped hole. And whether you believe that or not, you still, I think, have to recognize there's a hole, there's an emptiness. And we're trying to fill that hole. For me, to paraphrase that old song, I was looking for calling in all the wrong places. And when I look back, I see, so that awareness that you're empty, just dealing with that is the first step. I think once you deal with that, you have to realize that it has to be active. It's a seeking. If you want to understand calling, you're going to have to seek it. And each of those has a step, and you go further, but it takes active seeking. And I think the other thing that I would say to others, just from my experience, has been, and this is the word none of us like, including me, and that's obedience. The way I think it works is that whatever you get to see on calling, whether it's a glimmer, a glimpse, or a revelation of a step you're supposed to take, if you aren't obedient to that step, you don't get the next one. You can't do 1 and skip to 3. You've got to be obedient to what you see. And if you aren't obedient to what you see you're to do next, then you don't get the next piece. You can't shortcut it. And obedience is hard, and it's especially hard when doing that next step, instead of clarity, looks like you're getting ready to step off a cliff or into an abyss, and you can't see that there is another step. But to me, there always is. And I guess lastly, the most amazing thing so far to me about calling is, I mentioned earlier, 17 years that I felt like were really wasted. Just really detours, dead ends, screw-ups for 17 years. And the most amazing thing is now so far in looking back, again, don't have all the answers, but for the clarity I've gotten about my calling, as I look back, every one of those dead ends, screw-ups, blind alleys, wrong turns, God just was able to come back in and use those and, in fact, redeem those screw-ups, those mistakes. And when you look at that, it just changes your definition about what redeeming something, to redeeming the bad turns of your life, the wrong turns of your life. When you reflect on that, you have to say, if he did that towards my calling, then I have to recognize that perhaps he is the caller. And I've just come to believe that it's difficult to have a calling without a caller. And if you don't believe there's a caller, certainly that's your choice. But I just think at some point, everybody that wants to pursue their calling is going to have to face that and somehow deal with it. You're going to have to, at the end, deal with the calling. Because otherwise, if you have a calling without a caller, isn't it really just random? Isn't it just something that you maybe dreamed up, or it's your own agenda? So the connotation of a caller